Today, we're diving into a gripping journey where a young woman on the verge of starting a new life suddenly finds herself trapped in a deadly game set by ruthless strangers. A chilling kidnapping, dark conspiracies lurking in the shadows, and twists that will keep you on the edge of your seat. If you're into intense, mysterious, and unpredictable stories like this, don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss any upcoming episodes. In a dimly lit corner of a small cafe, smoke drifts through the air. An sits silently, his eyes sharp as a blade. Opposite him sits Thiet, his face beveled, his demeanor unyielding. They are neither friends nor enemies, yet between them exists an unspoken accord, one only those willing to walk in darkness would acknowledge. You know Giang, right? That girl messed me up, An says quietly. His hand taps the old wooden table, each thump packed with hatred. Surrounded by swirling smoke, he recounts his days behind bars, his voice thick with vengeance. Whatever Giang did, or An believes she did, is enough to push him past the point of no return. Thiet nods once, offering a cold smile. Not hard, but it's not cheap. 100 million. Half up front. An's words are sharp, his eyes gleaming maliciously. No more words are needed. A swift handshake suffices in place of a contract. That silent deal is, in essence, a death sentence signed and sealed in blood. An old, dilapidated room, peeling walls, a dim yellow light casting shadows on the faces gathered tightly around the table. Thiet sat across from them, his voice firm. 9 a.m. tomorrow, Giang heads to the airport. That's the perfect moment. The group nodded. Their eyes didn't gleam with pride or purpose, but with the lure of money. One of them spoke up. How do you want it done? Thiet smirked. Same as always, clean, quiet, no trace. The air was thick with cigarette smoke. These men had no use for pretense. For them, each plan was a dance with death. Every step, every move leading inevitably to a fatal end. Morning sunlight filters through the curtains, illuminating Giang's face. Quietly, she folds each outfit and tucks them into her suitcase, the careful motions seeming to gather memories into fabric. Once the clothes are packed, she steps into the living room and retrieves her study abroad documents. Passport, acceptance letter, medical certs, checking each item meticulously before placing them in her bag. She hesitates, glances around the familiar home one last time, her expression softening. Giang walks over and gently sits beside her mother. Wrapping her arms around her mother, she offers a gentle smile. Mom, I've got everything ready. Please don't worry. Her mother's eyes well with tears. How can I not worry, my child? You're going so far away. Giang grips her mother's hand, hope and nostalgia flickering in her eyes. I'm starting fresh where no one knows my past. Her mother squeezes her hand, reminding her to eat well, rest, and call often. Giang nods, promising to get settled soon and bring her mother to join her. The atmosphere is warm, comforting, yet beneath it all, a lingering unease, like a subtle premonition that something isn't quite right. The rumble of a vehicle outside jolts the moment. Giang lifts her suitcase to leave, embraces her mother one last time. In her eyes, unwavering determination. She doesn't realize that each step away from this doorway brings her closer to the edge of destiny. Giang rolls her suitcase to the curb. then glances back at the house one final time. The suitcase wheels hum softly in the morning hush, and a taxi pulls up beside her. She opens the trunk, gently places her luggage inside, then slips into the back seat. Unbeknownst to her, across the street, behind a tinted window of a black sedan, a cold, calculating gaze follows her every move. Silent, precise, like a hunter eyeing its prey. Inside the taxi, Giang settles in, her face bright and hopeful. She speaks to the driver. "I work as a consultant, supporting communities and small businesses." The driver turns around, smiling. "Wow, that's wonderful. You must help a lot of people." With a warm laugh and sparkling eyes, Giang says, "I just want to do something meaningful, contribute to society in a small way." The taxi cabin feels cozy, faintly scented by lingering coffee. It's a moment of calm, an eerie calm. Outside, the city buzzes with life, but something moves just beyond sight, as quietly unsettling as a phantom. Giang gazes out the window, dreaming of a fresh start, a place to leave her past behind. A soft song plays on the radio, nostalgic and soothing. "How long to the airport?" the driver asks. "About 30 minutes, she answers. Yet none of them realize those 30 minutes might be the last safe ones of her life. Because beyond the city's bustle, the shadow of tragedy creeps closer. The taxi rolls along city streets, the late afternoon sun casting warm streaks through the windows. Giang, seated in the back, looks dreamy-eyed and hopeful. She has no idea that her routine journey is about to be violently disrupted. Suddenly, from the left, a black car surges forward, forcing its hood into the taxi's path. The taxi driver slams the brakes, tires screech, the world jolts to a halt. Startled, Giang lurches forward, her heart pounds. "What's happening?" she whispers, voice full of fright. The driver steps out under the pretense of car trouble, mumbling to himself. Seconds later, Jiang's door swings open, hands grab her, dragging her from the seat. 3 or 4 attackers descend. Events move too fast. "Help me!" she screams, struggling in panic. But a rough palm smothers her mouth. Another binds her wrists. Then a cloth smothers her vision. Darkness envelops her. "Get her in the car," a cold voice orders. They hoist her into the black car that blocked the taxi earlier. The door slams shut. The stench of sweat and dust fills the air. Giang thrashes helplessly, her breath ragged. Then, the black-clad man from earlier swoops on the taxi driver. "Better keep your trap shut, or else," he snarls, his icy stare pinned on the driver. Terrified, the man nods and steps back. "Who are you? What do you want?" Giang manages to ask, through shaking sobs, despite the blindfold. "Shut up!" the voice snaps. The black car roars away into the night. The taxi sits abandoned in the street. The driver, shaking, whispers to himself, "I don't understand. Ectopic kidnapping, like an action movie. Should I call the police?" He hesitates, but recalls the threat, swallows hard, and gets back inside, unsettled. The city hums on. Traffic lights flicker, horns honk, none aware that a young woman has vanished in broad daylight. On a desolate coastal cliff, wind howls and cold bites like a blade. Giang is dragged out, terrified, blindfolded. She stands on the uneven ground, legs trembling against the gravel. "Please, let me go," she pleads, voice trembling. Silence answers. A hard voice issues its command. "Throw her off." Giang fights back, voice breaking. "No, Please don't. Each word cracks like a breaking heart. Her body is forced forward. At that moment, she sees her mother's face in her mind, her mom's morning smile, the hug they shared, and her final words of farewell. The image hits her like a fatal blow. The salt-laced wind gashes at her skin. The ground slips beneath her. She's pushed over. She plummets into darkness. The gale screams, and her scream merges with the thunder of waves far below. On the cliff rim, the kidnappers stand, expressionless. One last glance, then they turn and walk away without a word. No remorse, no hesitation, only the echo of the sea consuming their victim. Back in a dim cafe down a deserted alley, Thiet sits across from An. The silence stretches as both men process the aftermath. It's done, Thiet states evenly. An nods, pushing a stack of cash forward. His face glows with ruthless satisfaction. Well done, you didn't disappoint. He slides a file across the table. This one's next. Kwan's been encroaching on my territory. Do the same. Thiet flips through the dossier. Photos, addresses, known routes. No questions, no hesitation. A smirk forms on his lips. Consider it done. In that hushed room, there's no room for ethics, only deals, money, and blood. Both men know this game never ends. Giang is just one chapter in a dark ledger. More names will surface, more plans will be drawn, and new targets marked. Outside, the city sleeps unaware. In the shadows, a new scheme ignites. A fresh blade is sharpened for its next victim. Thiet pockets the cash and rises. He drifts into the night as though he never existed. But his steps echo with threats yet to unfold. The cycle continues.
Giang, một cô gái trẻ đang đứng trước ngưỡng của một khởi đầu mới, bất ngờ rơi vào một âm mưu đen tối. Đã được hình kế hoạch từ trước. Bị bắt cóc, bị bắt, bị kéo lê đến một khách đáo hoang vu. Cô đối mặt với cái chết ngay cả khi còn đang mơ về tương lai. Đằng sau tất cả một thỏa thuận im lặng giữa hai kẻ máu lạnh, anh và Thiet, những kẻ coi mạng người như món hàng để đổi trác. Khi Giang rơi xuống vực sâu, đó không chỉ là hồi kết của cô mà còn là khởi đầu cho một điều gì đó còn u ám hơn. Cái chết của cô là nước cờ mở màn cho một cuộc chơi đã được tính toán kỹ nữa. Thành phố vẫn yên bình, chẳng hay biết rằng trong bóng tối những mục tiêu mới đang bị nhắm đến, những cái bẫy mới đang được răng ra. Ai sẽ là nạn nhân tiếp theo? Trong thế giới đầy im lặng, tiền bạc và máu này, trò chơi vẫn chưa kết thúc, và khi mọi thứ kết thúc cũng chỉ là một sự khởi đầu được ngụy trang.